Hello, this is Adrian Jr. of Cincinnati Outdoors. I'm out here at the range. I'm gonna sight in my 30-06 for mule deer this season. Gonna take this one out. Gonna sight it in. So let's go ahead and get started.
Welcome to Cincinnati Outdoors! Fishing, hunting, and the great outdoors.
So as this video plays, I'm gonna try to explain the things that happen to your bullet because it's kind of hard to understand sometimes. So I made this chart specifically for these bullets right here. Each bullet's different, everything's different. So what this is basically explaining is how the bullet's gonna shoot at certain distances. Let's go ahead and get started. We got the range at 100 yards. That's the farthest it goes out here. So first off, when you buy rounds, they have to have a ballistics table because you have to know how this bullet shoots. I'm going to be using these deer season 150 grain rounds. They have their ballistics table here. At 200 yards, they're at 0, so they're right on target, straight line. At 100 yards, they'll have 1.7 inch lift, so we're planning on shooting 1.7 inches above our target today. So, because we're ranging in at 200, and then you can see when you're 300 yards, it'll be down 7.4 inches, 421.8, and 544.5. I'm gonna try my best to explain trajectory to you guys right now. So what it is how your bullet shoots from the second you shoot it to where it lands. So a lot of you guys don't know this, but your rifle is actually tilted upwards as your scope is straight, so your bullet can arc. It's hard to notice, but it is happening. That's why your bullet arches over your scope. So right now I'm going to explain to you guys why your barrel is at an angle. So let's just say this is your barrel, and this high-speed Rakuten coin, that's pretty cool, my dad has, is your bullet. So if your barrel was straight, right, this is supposed to represent how fast it hit the floor. See, so your bullet would have already hit the floor by then. So when your barrel's at an angle, it throws it, and then that time gets there. So if you were to shoot it at an angle, this is how long it'd take. See, you just doubled your time, which will make your shot be able to go a lot farther. So that is why your barrel is always put at an angle. So your scope right here is always going to be straight. And these bullets right here say it's going to be 0 at 200, so we're going to obviously try to zero in the bullet at 200 yards. That's why it's called 0. The bullet's going to meet exactly where your scope is. So the round is going to lift. That's why at 100 yards it says it's 1.7 inches high, because your bullet has to lift to hit that 200 mark. So it's going to lift, and at 300 you can see it's already starting to take a real fast downfall. At 300 yards it's going to be 7.4 inches low, then 400 it even goes lower and lower from there. And as you guys can see, at 500 yards it's almost 4 feet below where you're aiming. So if you're taking a 500 yard shot, you're going to want to aim almost 4 feet above your target.
Alright, take 3 and then we'll know where you're at.
Alright. So when you are sighting in your weapon, these are what your shot groups are going to be. The reason why you take 3 shots is because one of these shots, if you take 1, you might pull it or whatever. So you take 3, and your shot grouping, you're going to triangulate it, right? And where your shot grouping is actually right here. So you're going to want that triangle to be wherever you want it. So at 200 yards with these bullets, where I would want that dot right there to be is right here. So I'd want my shot grouping to be around there with the dot straight in the middle.
Two more. One more.
Shooting on a chair is different than shooting laying down.
It was zeroed in too close is what the problem is.
Yeah.
Who painted this? Alright, so
They're all laughing.
I just need you to do a shot group of 3 and we'll fix it from there. Get a good tight shot group.
Alright.
You just use the tip of your finger when you're squeezing that trigger. Tip of your finger and pull straight back. Relax. Exhale. Fire. There you go. Let it surprise you.
So there's a couple things I want to go over that will just make you a better shooter. So first off is trigger squeeze. So let's just say this is the trigger of a rifle. They say you want to make sure you pull it straight back. So if you have too little of your finger on the trigger, it might pull your gun to the side. If you have too much, all of those can change your pulling. So you want to make sure you have just the right amount and pull it straight back and let the gun surprise you. So another thing is breathing. You always want to shoot with all the air out of your lungs, because if you breathe in, because if you're nervous and you hold in a breath, your lung size will always be different, which will make you shoulder your rifle different every time. So you always want to shoot on an exhaled breath, so no air in your lungs, and because it's always the same. So the last thing is how you hold your weapon. So you always want to make sure you hold it the same. So you should always have a spot on your cheek or your shoulder. You want your elbows to be the same, because you always want the same sight picture. If you have different sight pictures, your shot grouping is going to be everywhere. If you have that, you're going to be able to get a tight shot grouping and be able to calculate your weapon really good and be able to take even longer shots.
Alright. At 100 yards, I want you to have a smaller shot group. So, whenever you shoot a shot group, you shoot them 3 rounds. You triangulate it, take the middle. So really, that's where your shot group is at right there, your point. We're going to move you right at 100 yards. You want to be about 1.5 inches above your target at 100. And then at 200, you're going to be zeroed. Alright. So go ahead and patch those up. Hopefully within the next 9 rounds we can get you where we want you, and we'll be done. Give your shoulder a break.
So what I mean by clicks is every scope has its click ratio. This is what my scope was. 1 click equals 1/4 an inch at 100 yards. So let me show you guys an example. Just to make this easy, we're going to say this target is 100 yards. So let's say this was 1 inch and this was 1/2 inch, right? So I'm going to need to move 4 clicks to the right and 2 clicks down to be dead on.
There you go.
Hey guys, I'm closing up in about 15 minutes.
All right. One more, hurry. Now get up. You're walking.
Are they on?
He's here. There he is. Bottom target. Walking that way. See a deer.
So this is where it starts to get tricky. Yes, this is a perfect world. There's not really any wind and you're on a horizontal shot. So where it starts to get tricky is right here. Most of us are going to be on an elevated position when we shoot at our animal. But when you're shooting downhill, your gravitational pull becomes less. So what will actually happen is your bullet begins to rise. So where you were once 0 at 200 yards, now you're going to be shooting maybe a foot high or half a foot high. So you got to practice this. For example, the steeper of a shot you're making, the more your bullet's going to rise. So if you're shooting straight down, say you're shooting straight down, your bullet is never going to meet back up with this. It's just going to keep rising like this picture sort of shows. It never meets back up with the line of your scope. Okay, so just a real quick scenario. Say you're shooting downhill, you finally do see a deer, and you range it in and it's at 100 yards. And this is the same thing that's going to be happening here. So you see the deer at 100 yards, you actually have to do a lot of math if you want to take that shot. Because you got to be thinking of everything that goes into play when you're shooting. So here, since this one's already drawn. So after you see your deer, just say this is a deer. Yeah, it looks sort of like a deer right there. So you're shooting at it. So this is 100 yards downhill. As you guys can see, at 100 yards, it's already lifting 1.7 inches. So shooting downhill is going to make that bullet rise even faster. So what I'm going to do is I would feel comfortable just off the top of my head maybe shooting about 3 inches below the heart, because I'm going to account for that rise. So if you're aiming 3 inches below the heart, your bullet's going to rise and hit it probably where you want it to, and hopefully it'll drop that animal. So I hope this video helped all you guys that are just getting into shooting. If you guys already knew it, it's kind of like a little review, but I have a lot of people that are just getting into shooting, so I hope you guys are successful out there. So check out my Facebook, my Instagram. I'm going to be doing a Q&A, throw some questions in there. I'll be answering them sometime this week. So on my Facebook page, I also have a trophy board. I look at all the pictures. Hope you guys upload some pictures. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you outdoors.